Jimmy? Jimmy, are you in there? Jimmy, are you in there? Okay, he's not home.
Wow.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Paid Search Podcast. My name is Jason Rothman. As always, I'm joined by the great Chris Schaefer.
It's the saddest day of my life. Jimmy has run away from home 2020. I didn't know that. Glad to get an update, at least, about Jimmy. But Jason, good to be
Yes.
here. Thanks for joining me on my half of the show, and I'll join you on your half of the show, and together we will have a whole show. So, guys, thanks for listening. Thanks for subscribing. This is the Paid Search Podcast, and we're here to talk about Google Ads. And Jason has informed me that in order to have a more efficient, happy time, we must limit the chatter to a specific time code. The trick is, I'm not going to tell you guys how long the chatter time code that we've decided is. So you just have to just stick around and listen, because we'll see if we hit it or not.
Okay. Are you talking about just like pre-show, how's it going,
Yeah,
Chris stuff?
the pre-show. Yeah. Because we're on time code now. I have to be careful. I have to make my chatter matter, as they say.
No, let's break this down, because sometimes I have great long-term memory, but for whatever reason, people introduce themselves, their names, my short-term memory is not the best always. Are you like doing a joke right now and making this up, or did I actually say that?
You actually said that. Literally, we did talk for an hour before the show, so you probably forgot. You said, Chris, I think going forward, we need to keep our chatter down to 10 minutes. And then, remember that?
And now are you making fun of me because I'm not sure if I said that? And it's actually, because this sounds like something you would want to do and say, because I'll talk to you all day
said that.
about non-Albert
Am I
stuff.
taking crazy pills? There's no way. You said that.
I have no recollection of that.
Unbelievable. Jason has reached old age. Ladies and gentlemen, for Jason, the cutoff point was, how old are you? 24? You're very young, so I don't know what it is. But that's sad. That's sad.
Well, they know the people who get older, they also tend to make ridiculous stuff up. So that might be happening as well. Because again,
that might have been it too.
Or manipulative people just kind of manipulate sometimes. So I think that's what might be going on. Because you're always the business guy. Let's get down to it. Let's get it. People like the tight content and all that. And I'm like, I just want to know about you as a person, you know?
This is not the place, Jason. If you want to get to know me as a person,
you
must pay $2 like everyone else and join us on the Patreon, which is a wonderful episode where we get to really break down some personal issues between each other. But before we get into the Google Ads stuff, I'm going to tell you guys about Optio. Optio is a sponsor of the show that we appreciate. They've been around for a long time, and we talk about them because they're a great tool to getting things done faster in Google Ads. I hear a lot of things about people saying, Chris, I don't even know where to look. I don't know where to go. I don't know what the problem is. They don't even know where to start. They look at a screen and they have Google Ads block, right? Another word for writer's block. They don't even know where to start. How do I optimize? I got good news for you. If that's your issue, if you often find yourself stalling out on creativity, stalling out on optimization, stalling out on getting things done efficiently, Optio is the tool for you. This is the tool designed to get things done faster in Google Ads, as well as other PPC systems. The tool is at opteo.com/PSP. And the reason I want you to go there is because you can get an additional extended trial, a 6-week trial, instead of what the old scrubs out there get for just 30 days. You can get a 6-week trial and try it out for free. Opteo.com/PSP. That's opteo.com/PSP. And you too can enjoy the benefit of getting things done fast in Google Ads.
Thanks, Chris. And I want to thank today's other sponsor, Directive Consulting, directiveconsulting.com. Directive Consulting is the go-to B2B and enterprise search engine marketing agency. You deserve more. They do it all: SEO, pay-per-click, landing pages, social media advertising, content. Go to their website, look at some of the brands they've worked with, look at their case studies, look at the services they offer. There's all different types of Google Ads campaigns, search engine marketing campaigns, online marketing campaigns. It's all about getting leads, but it really is a different kind of strategy, and a lot of different things go into it depending on what kind of business you have. A small business campaign, an e-commerce campaign, B2B and enterprise. For B2B and enterprise, we recommend Directive Consulting. They have dedicated teams, daily communication, rapid execution, and predictable ROI. Directive Consulting, go to directiveconsulting.com and get a free custom proposal today.
Jason, do you have any news to share on the show?
Nope.
What? Yes, you do. Okay, fine. Fine. Okay, read me a review then. I know you have to have a review to share with us.
Oh, are you talking about the private Facebook group?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Literally-
No,
Do you
Chris,
have-
we were
do you have the spreadsheet pulled up?
we were gelling so good before the show, and then we
I
come
know.
on here
We're
and
following.
I don't know if
Turned up.
we're like dance partners stepping on each other's feet. So let's go to the bar.
Let's go.
Have a
another
drink. Loosen up a little bit.
Loosen up.
Let's forget the past. Live in the moment. Look in each other's eyes.
All right. Feel good.
All right. Loosen up. Loosen that tension. Okay. Let's make some jazz right now. Okay. So everyone knows I started the PSP forum a few weeks ago. Had some good engagement on there, and it was a good time. But then someone, when I was getting my groceries one day, this car just pulled up, a white van. They punched me in my mouth, put me in the white van.
Oh my gosh.
Put a blindfold on my eyes.
Why? Why would they do that?
They put a blindfold on my eyes. I didn't know where I was going. They drove me around for 2 hours. We got out into this mansion in the countryside, and wow. I couldn't see who they are, but they tied me up. They didn't hurt me. They just kind of scared me a little bit. And they were behind a curtain, and I think there were 3 or 4 of them. And they said, we're big fans of the Paid Search podcast, but it's 2020, not 1997. So we want to talk Google Ads strategy with you and other listeners of the Paid Search podcast, but we don't know what a forum is. We are on Facebook, and they gave me the idea, and I'm just going to run with it because I'm not scared of them or anything. I'm just going to run with it. We created a private Facebook group for Paid Search Podcast Patreon members. And there's no extra charge on Patreon. It's included in the current tiers we've been doing, the $2 a month, the $4 a month. Everyone gets access. You sign up on Patreon. You go to our Facebook page and request to join the group. I see that you're on Patreon, and then we let you in. And Chris, there's been more engagement in there, more discussion than was on the forum within like the first couple of days. Like maybe it has something to do with people being on Facebook, but it's going good. And I'm asking people questions. Everyone's asking each other questions, giving each other advice. I've seen some really interesting things, and we encourage people to join us there. And by the way, Chris, because it is just right now Patreon, quality is pretty high. Like it's a lot of professional people asking each other questions, and it's pretty cool.
Good stuff. Yeah. All right. Jason, do you have anything positive that anyone has written with a 5-star review that you'd like to highlight, or should we just jump in to the topic of the day?
Let's go with a new listener, Dion from Apple Podcasts in Australia. One of our biggest markets, by the way. A lot of
my gosh, Australia. I just talked to someone from Australia, and I'm sorry. I hope she got enough sleep that night because she woke up so early to talk to me. The sacrifice those people make to talk to us all the way across the world. It's amazing.
So very, very brief review from a new listener. Wow, 5 stars, 2 episodes in, and I've already learnt so much invaluable.
Hey, short and sweet.
Short and
That's
sweet.
what
And
Australians are about.
That's what I want from the reviews. I'm trying to tell people every week, make them short, make them sweet, get on there,
Oh
get
yeah,
out.
because that's what you've said. Yeah.
What are you like
Yeah.
making stuff up
Let
right
me
now?
rewind a few weeks ago. Like literally, I want a story. I want an essay. I want inspiration. That's literally you, 2019. So I guess 2020. Are you playing this game again where you don't know? Are you going to pretend you don't remember that? Jason, it's 10 minutes. That's 10 minutes. That's it. All right. Here is the topic for the day. The topic for today, as inspired by Jason, super creative idea. This is absolutely a chronic issue that I see many accounts having. It is not being able to spend your full budget. You have, and let me explain what that means. You have 1,000 that you have dedicated to spend every month. You have 2,000, you have 10,000, and you have, let's say, a very high search impression share. In other words, you're covering the full market. You're hitting the top of the search positions. You know, you're maxing out just about all the gauges that you need to max out. And what do you do? I mean, where do you go from here? How do you say, I want to spend more, I want to go further, but I don't know where those avenues are. And this is something, Jason, I know you have some very specific ideas about what can cause this in an account.
Well, Chris, let me first ask you, I'm curious for you, the problem of not being able to spend the full budget that you want to spend. Is that where does that rank on your list of problems? Because I'm going to tell you something. I've gotten in physical altercations about this with people before.
Oh my gosh.
And
Those 4 guys again? Wow.
no, it's a different thing where someone was, I don't know, I don't want to get into it, but I was frustrated that someone wasn't spending their full budget. And I thought it was kind of like a slap on the back, high back, like, what are you doing, idiot? Like, spend the full budget on this account. They took it more as a slap in the head and got in my face, and then all I did was defend myself. But it got physical.
Wow.
It keeps me up at night, Chris. I'll be honest with you. This problem, you may be surprised to hear that. We don't talk about this a lot.
Yeah.
Keeps me up at night. This is my biggest problem in life.
Really?
Yes, really.
You have a great life.
I do have a good life, but I have a really good life. I think about that every single day. I do have a good life, but no, Chris, it really does. It's one of the biggest problems in my life, because when you think about Google Ads, getting leads, getting perfect search terms, getting high click-through rates, all these other parts of Google Ads, I know how to do that. But every now and then, maybe 10% of the time, and especially when we bring on a new client, it makes me furious with myself and the situation. If I'm not spending the full budget, but I'm doing everything else right, but I'm not spending the full budget, I look at that as not doing my job. Now, I'm not saying for ridiculous situations, like if a mover works with me and they're in one local city and they want to spend $40,000 a month, I'm like, okay, there's not enough searches, even if you want to show up number one all the time and bid as high as you can to spend for it. The volume's not there. But if I know the volume is there, like if I have a criminal defense campaign with 1 million people metro and our budget's only $1,000 a month or $1,500, and for whatever reason, some of the reasons we'll get into below, for whatever reason, we're going month after month of not being able to spend that budget, even though I see us there in the preview tool, and we're not bidding. That drives me crazy. I don't know. How often do you run into this problem?
I think that the 10% is a good measurement. I do run into it, but I do not think it's common. And I think there's several instances when this flares up. I think for me, the biggest problem is when there are limitations set typically by the client that is going to force me to work within certain parameters. For example, they are a chiropractor and they insist that the only people they want are, within these 10 zip codes, something like that. Like do not advertise anywhere except for these 5-10 zip codes. That's it. That is an issue because I start having problems with spend. So in other words, the more general idea is limitations on or restrictions on reach for local campaigns. That's usually when it starts to come up. Or the other instance when it comes up, and this isn't quite as common, but it's things that just aren't searched for. Someone has a widget that works with another widget that's for this other widget, and people just don't know about that first widget. Like they don't even know to search for it because it's a subcategory of a subcategory, and there's not even like a search volume for it. There's not a demand for it. And we have to, start, we'll talk about the solutions of how to get out of that. But basically, that's the solution that I usually have to, or that's the other instance when I have that same problem.
Does it eat at you? For me, for whatever reason, I don't know. Maybe I should loosen up, but it eats at me, and I especially it eats at me when I think they could be spending that full budget if there wasn't a problem. But I guess that's a good kind of way to kick us off here. We're going to go through a checklist here, and we're going to talk about the different areas you and I would look in if we're not spending the full budget. And these could be different problems that come up. And then I think what we should do, Chris, is we should kind of do two things. We should make a judgment call on if this is a fixable problem or not. And if it is fixable, we'll kind of give how you and I approach fixing it. So the first section here on why you wouldn't be spending your full desired budget is a legitimate reason. So why don't you break that down for people, Chris?
Yeah. So the first reason is probably one of the ones that's going to be more obvious to people, but I think it's important to explain how to fix it. So the first thing is limited keyword reach. It's essentially a problem that you have created yourself, probably due to obsessive compulsive disorder of keyword match types. There's probably some kind of diagnosis with a long name for that, but basically someone who says, I only want to run exact match because I want to be very careful with my traffic. Where in reality, as we'll talk about, you're not really being careful with it that way. You're being too restrictive and probably wasting money because you're not allowing for leniency on some of those matches. But in reality, the restrictions of your keywords can mean that Google doesn't have any wiggle room. I mean, if you have 7,000 negative keywords and you have all exact match and you block anything that doesn't, any variables that show up that you don't like, and you have no modified broad, you have no broad, you have no, maybe you have some phrase, but they're longer tail phrase, 3-4 words, you've backed yourself into a corner, and now you're going to have trouble spending some of that budget.
Okay, so I think the obvious fix there is to loosen up, to add in some maybe shorter phrases, keywords, maybe to add in some broad modified, maybe to look for some more keywords. One thing that I think is difficult about this, Chris, when you're restricting, your keywords are too restricted, I don't think people listening to this can just look at an account and get a notification that tells them their keyword list is too restrictive. I think this comes from experience. This comes from being able to judge a situation. So for people listening who want to know if their keywords are too restrictive and then how to fix it, I guess two-part question for you. What would your advice be to the signs that something's too restrictive? How can someone make that judgment call? And then two, what are the steps you take next to not go crazy with broad keywords and get horrible traffic and all that, but how do you take some baby steps week by week into trying to get some more traffic? So how do you diagnose it? How do you tell? And then how are your first steps to loosen it up?
Okay. So self-diagnosis, I think, looks like this. Look at your top 20% spend in the past 30, 60 days. And if you can point and show me one keyword that gets a significant amount of variable, it is loose enough. It's either a 2-word phrase match, or it's a modified broad, or maybe pure broad, whatever, but it's in your top 20%, hopefully not your number one spending keyword, but it's in that top 20, and it's generating volume, and you can point to that keyword and say, this right there is giving me some variables that I can use and test and find new keywords.
Some data.
I'm not talking about, exactly.
Okay.
New search terms that don't fit into the keywords thing. And I'm not talking about one in every single ad group. I'm referring to like one for every major category you're advertising.
Right.
If that's one campaign, then maybe it's just one campaign. And then the solution, if you can't find that, if you do have some, but they're basically spending very little, they're part of the minority of keywords that get very little traffic. The solution, I think, is, I mean, Jason, nowadays it's so complicated because we have automated bidding. So many people jump in on the automated bidding bandwagon, and the solution here, we're gonna have to go back to old school. Manual bidding plus modified broad and maybe some broad keywords. I don't suggest doing this method with automated bidding because you're going to get in trouble with some junk traffic that's way too expensive. But my solution is manual bidding, throw low bids on some modified broad, loose keywords. Maybe they only have a plus on one word.
Wow.
Maybe two. And then, or maybe some pure broad keywords that have 3-4 words in them. Not one word.
So you don't want to mess around changing the keywords that are exact keywords into phrase keywords. You just want to, if we're trying to grow the search terms list, grow the impressions, grow this restriction, you don't want to really just take a small step. You actually want to try to grow it. But the way you protect yourself is with lower manual bids as you're branching out with these looser keywords. See what kind of search terms come in for ideas, and then is the next step taking those search terms that come in. There's going to be some bad ones because it's modified broad and broad, but you're going to get some good ones. Take the good ones and make those broad match, modified, and phrase match, and then start growing your good keyword list that way.
Exactly. You'll find stuff that's like that are action terms, that are adjectives, that are nouns that you had not thought of using before. Like, oh wow, people are looking for used boats, but it turns out like people use, engine types or something like that. They use things that you never thought that's really important. They don't use the word boat. They actually use the type of boat plus the length, so you never got any clicks because you just had the word, used boat. Who the heck searches for used boat? You look for Glastron or, fishing, something like that. So that's the idea that you're going for. Find those holes that you're not utilizing.
Okay. And if you can do experiments and limit the amount of time that an experiment runs to 15 or 20%, and then if you can do different bidding types on the experiments, you can do it that way, or you can kind of do a manual experiment if you can't do different bidding types in an experiment, and you can do like, okay, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I'm going to do this current campaign I'm doing. Tuesday, Wednesday, I'm going to do the manual bid campaign with lower bids and kind of looser keywords, and kind of once I find some good search terms, throw those into my Monday, Wednesday, Friday campaign. So that's how I'll be looking at. Chris, just briefly, the other kind of keyword issue is where your search impression share lost to budget is 0%. Your budget's not restricting you in any way, and your search impression share lost to ad rank is 0%. And by 0%, we mean close to 0%. And your bids are not restricting you in any way. Well, then you are maxing out. That's kind of how you know if you're maxing out the keywords that you target. If your search impression share is basically above 90%, then it's time to either just know if your keywords are kind of looser or good, I would say, then you're maxing out your market. But if they're really restricted, then it's time to kind of try loosening them up. So Chris, that's a keyword issues that could cause you not to spend the full budget. What about some settings issues, like actually on the settings area?
Yeah. Okay. One thing I want to say, this is something that will be coming up next week. There's one more way that you can find new keywords but you got to wait till next week. That I'm not going to tell you. See, you know what it is, Jason. I already previewed it, but yeah, we're going to talk about it next week.
Don't worry. Even if he named it, like 90% of people,
would say
would,
what
would be like, "What's that?"
Oh.
Like I've
Oh,
heard that.
I thought most people would say that's dumb. I can't believe you use that, but I didn't realize people don't know about it. Okay.
That is not a popular. Well, we'll get into it. I'm excited. I'm excited to hear about it next week.
Okay. All right. So settings. Yeah. I alluded to this at the beginning, but Jason, as I said, locations. Locations are too small, and this may not be your fault. You may have gotten direction from a client, or perhaps you are the client and you're listening to the show. The advertiser, thank you. The advertiser, and you've made the decision, I only want people from these 3 cities. Listen, I'm going to clap on everything because this is important. You know what they do on Twitter? They have little clapping hands. Listen to me. Your client, I can't even do your customers.
So mad.
Travel. I know. It's not. It looks a lot better if you type it out with a clappy emoji thing. But anyway, your people move, and they're not always in the same zip code. And this is a problem because when they search, you may not show them an ad because you're only targeting 3 zip codes, and they're not in that zip code when they're searching, and they may not have used the city name or the zip code, the actual zip code.
But Chris, I had a client this week. You got to admit, there's something sexy about zip codes. Yes, there is. Recognize it in clients because Chris, we're targeting a major part of the state, one of these states out there, a major part. Okay. And I'm like, hey, we can do radiuses. We can do counties. We can do whatever you want to do. Like there's plenty of ways to do this. What I need from you is just tell me what part of the state specifically you want to target, and we'll make that happen with different parts of the targeting we can do, radiuses, counties, whatever. We can negative out different areas. Okay, but I want to do zip codes. Okay, but it's like we will show in those zip codes, but you're targeting such a large part of the state. It's probably better if we just make sure we cover that whole part with the radius or the counties or the cities or whatever. No, I'm thinking zip codes though. And so I finally just said, okay, we can do it. But just you send me the list of 75 zip codes.
Yeah.
Or really, it might be 1 or 200. Like zip codes sometimes are really tiny. So for a big part of a state, so can you at least acknowledge that maybe you and I don't know why it is, but there is something sexy and attractive to advertisers about having the ability to go, that's my zip code, and be able to choose that by zip code. Don't you think there's something out there with that? Does it come from direct mail? Where does this come from, Chris?
That's a good point. Yeah, I wonder if it's like a carryover from direct mail. Like we can send letters to zip codes. Like wow, technology. So I don't know. I totally agree. It is kind of magical, and I know it is because I have so many people send me.
Should we do an experiment and make a podcast episode specifically about zip code targeting just as clickbait and watch it get a bunch more downloads than other ones?
I don't know. I don't want to do it. I don't want to ruin someone's Google Ads campaign because I deleted all my logical focus target.
You hate zip codes, don't you?
I don't like to do it. The only way I'll do zip codes is if they give me a large number, and then what I'll do is I will layer a county over the top of that, or a city over the top of it, or a radius over the top of it. I'm like, I am not leaving it up to chance that someone's going to happen. Because here's the thing. If your ISP is not in that zip code and you didn't include a city name, Google's going to always show things based on your ISP location, the zip code of your ISP. Jason, if you were to look up your ISP and see where you're supposed to be located, I bet it's not the exact billing code or zip code of where you actually lived.
Sometimes I live in Dallas on my phone. Yeah. And I'm like, I'm not in Dallas, but I could act like I'm in Dallas and be, cool and hip and
be a little
big 10%
city. Better. That's right. Yeah. Okay. So we'll get off of that. Sorry, zip code guys. I'm just not a fan of it.
Okay, so a legitimate reason you could be not being able to spend your budget are your locations are too small. So if the goal is to spend your full budget or more of your full budget, and you want to do that. The question is, well, if my locations are too small, how much bigger should I go? And you have tons of options. Like I was talking about, radiuses, counties. Like the thing with radius, okay, if you're doing a 10-mile radius, make it 20. But the question is, well, how much bigger do I go? That's all defined by your business. What area do you get customers, clients, whatever? Where can you service that business? And yes, if you want more of your traffic closer to the home office or whatever, start small. But if you're not spending your full budget, go larger until you're able to spend your full budget. Just because you're at a 5-mile radius doesn't mean you need to go to 50. Try 10, something like that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I know this is out of order, but I have to say that the other two that are listed here, I think fall perfectly in line because they all fall underneath the, hey, I got a great idea kind of thing, right? They say, hey, I want to advertise to these zip codes. The next thing they'll say is, also, I want to advertise to the people that are, laying in bed. The kids are finally asleep and it's like 9 p.m. and they're on their iPad. So I want to advertise from 9 p.m. to 4 a.m. for the people that are up late. And then also I only want to do tablets, like I only want to do mobile devices or only computers because that's the only people I want. It's only going to be a computer where a client's going to find me that I want to work with them. Those two avenues, ad schedule and devices are essentially the same thing we discussed. You're limiting your reach. You're taking steps too far. Until you have the data to prove something, you have to back off and test it. That's the only thing consistent in Google Ads is you always get data. You always get data. You can waste $1,000 and get nothing, but you didn't waste it. You got $1,000 worth of data. You always get data. You don't get that with Google Analytics. You get a bunch of unknown. You get, don't know where this person came from. Oh, this click, I don't know where this was from. In Google Ads, you see the actual search, the time of day, the path that they took, the search that they did, all that stuff. You get a ton of it. So until you've proven that working hours are not good for you and you have the data to show it, don't eliminate it. Don't eliminate bid adjustments, certain devices just because you think so. And of course, demographics as well, like age groups, immediately eliminating an entire generation. You know what? 18 to 24, I'll never sell to them. Guess what? Sometimes someone can be doing a search for someone else. Someone may be using someone else's computer. Someone may be doing something that it does not fit in with a certain age group that according to Google login. So,
yeah. And Chris, a lot of these settings, things like location bid adjustments, ad schedules, devices, advanced bid adjustment on devices, or not on devices, but that has to do with calls, demographic bid adjustments, age, gender, income level. A lot of those, they're just good to audit and check out what's going on if you're not spending your full budget. Because sometimes advertisers have multiple people that have access to their account. Sometimes you're taking over from a previous manager, stuff like that. And different settings can get set there. And you look at your devices and you're like, oh, my tablets are negative 80%. Well, maybe I should put that back to 0 bid adjustment and see how the tablet traffic performs. Another example is sometimes people, like you're saying, they bid down different demographics a bunch, and then they bid different parts of their schedule down. So if you're not being able to spend your full budget, that's part of my audit list, Chris. I'm looking at all the possible ways we could accidentally, if we didn't know about it, be bidding down or any kind of adjustments and causing us not to have a chance to spend our budget. So that's somewhere I'm always looking just to see if any mistakes were made or anything was forgotten. And then one final tip on settings. This is a bit, no one else talks about this except us, Chris. Languages. If you're targeting only English, but Chris, there's different parts of this country where there's huge populations that speak Russian or Chinese in the home, something like that. And they do searches in English on their phone, whatever, but their browser might be set to Chinese. It might be set to Russian. If it's set to Russian or Chinese and you're only targeting English, even if they do an English keyword, for your keyword, you're not going to show up. So why not, if you're trying to spend more of your budget, check me if I'm wrong here, Chris, but why not put it on all languages? And someone's going to say, well, then I'm going to get people calling in a different language. Well, no, because you're only going to show up no matter what
English
their
searches.
browser is set to if they type in your keywords that are actually in the language your keywords are. Is that correct, Chris?
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. That's
okay.
We should state this plainly. The language setting does not have to, Google does not translate your keywords. They don't translate your ads. The language setting is merely a browser computer setting. Okay. It's not going to, I've had people think that, well, let's do Spanish too. Will you go ahead and turn that on so it'll translate it? No, that's not what happens. It's just a browser setting. So yeah, great point. Great point for sure. All right. And last, we saved the gut punch for the last hit because these last couple, Jason, I think they kind of hit too close to home, some of them, because I've done these before. These are just flat out mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll do the first one because this is something I've definitely seen before and it drove me crazy. I had an account where I was running and I check it and, you sleep and then you come back the next morning and you think, well, I don't remember it looking like this. Like, I don't remember all my bids looking like this, or I don't remember pausing that keyword or something like that. And after a frustrating way too many days, I finally figure out there were rules set up for this account that would take anything that fell below a certain quality score, that anything that had a cost per click that went above X amount, anything that had a click-through rate below a certain amount, it would pause it automatically. These rules, and we could do, I'm gonna have to censor myself because I have lots of things to say about.
We have an editor, Chris.
Like
if you want to say it, say it. If it make you feel good, say it.
I don't want to. No, she does a great job. She does not need more work. I'm just gonna say, watch out for rules because they can bite you in the butt. And these are located in, well, shoot, I don't have Google Ads pulled up, but it's
I got it pulled up.
The tools and settings up at the top right of the screen.
Tools,
and then go over
bulk actions, rules.
Thank you. Look them up. If they're running, they could be pausing.
Chris,
things,
the thing about rules, it's like if you get on there the next day and your campaigns are paused, you're going to catch that. And you're going to look at the change history and you're going to be like, oh, there's a rule set up pause campaigns on certain days or whatever. Great. I'll reverse that rule. But the rules that will really mess you up are the sneaky rules that are like
the quality score stuff,
the change rate. Bids by 30% if they hit this and pause keywords if they hit this many impressions, and that'll really mess you up. Change again, go on and on. But it's the sneaky ones you got to be careful for. So just in terms of, we're not spending our full budget, we can't figure out what's going on. It's all about doing an audit and an inspection. Go to the rules page and verify that there are no rules set up, or at least what rules are going on. Chris, this is another huge mistake. Personally, me, over the years and the hundreds and hundreds of campaigns I've managed, I have never, ever made this mistake. But I talk to other freelancers, other agencies, and I hear people make this mistake all the time.
What? Okay.
No, I've never made this mistake.
Which one?
Accidentally adding a negative to a campaign or an ad group that should not be added. So like the way this comes up is if there's a moving company campaign and someone does a search, like you're targeting the area of Dallas and someone is in Dallas and they do a search like movers Milwaukee, and they were in Dallas when they did the search, and you're like, wait, but the client doesn't do long distance moves, so I'm going to add in this keyword as a negative. And you click the keyword, you click add as negative, and then you're there and you go, oh, I'm going to change it to just to make it the word Milwaukee when I add it as a negative keyword, because that's what I want to block. But maybe you're listening to a podcast with a couple really good looking guys, couple great funny guys that talk about Google ads, and you're just like, I love this podcast, and you're just like, you know what, I love this podcast so much, I'm going to share it on Twitter right now, going to share it on Instagram, going to share it on Facebook. I'm going to help them grow the show. I'm going to tell people about the archive they sell, the first 100 episodes, for $2.99 an episode, and I'm going to tell all my friends on Facebook about their Patreon. I'm going to go sign up on Patreon right now. And you get a little distracted, and then you come back into your search terms, and when you're adding it, you accidentally add the word mover and not Milwaukee as a negative. And then the next day you don't get any traffic. That's how things like this can happen, Chris.
Yep.
Do you run
Definitely.
into this? Do you see people who do this?
I'll tell you the thing that has saved my butt more than anything, as far as all the Google alerts that they do. You know, I mean, all the red alerts on Google freaking drive me crazy nowadays, because it's like, oh, this is wrong. Oh, you should change this. Warning, warning. It's like everywhere, you know. But that's the one rule I love, or the one warning that I really appreciate is the one that's like, hey, this keyword's blocking 46 of your, or this negative keyword's blocking 46 of your keywords.
No, I've got beef. I've got beef. Chris, now, when I say I never have made this mistake ever, I'm going to stand by that. But hypothetically, hypothetically, if I had made this mistake, what I'll tell you is sometimes when I've made this mistake, I don't find the alerts to be helpful always. Sometimes I find that the alerts don't catch it. And this is in like sometimes in large accounts where there's a lot of campaigns, a lot of ad groups. I have found, and also when I'm using a lot of negative keyword lists, maybe that's an issue.
Shared that's the key.
List. Is that the issue with the alert?
That's the issue. I was going to say, I don't know if this is still true, but the alert does not work with shared.
Well, then that's the issue, because that's where I've run into this. If I hypothetically ever made this mistake, because that's where it's kind of dragged on, and I don't get the alerts because I use shared negative keyword list a lot. And so if you're doing your audit, go through your negative keyword list, go through the ad group level, go through the campaign level of negative keywords, and make sure you're not blocking anything. Go to your preview tool during the times you run where you still have budget left, type in your keywords, the top keywords you think people would search, make sure you're showing up.
All right, for the last one, we're going to talk about audiences and something huge. But before I do that, I'll tell you guys about Optio. Hey, I mentioned it about 40 minutes ago, and you need to hear it again because you forgot to go try it out. opteo.com/PSP. You hear that pause? That's literally what I was expecting you to pull up a browser window right now and go try it out, because you can get 6 weeks free to try out their tool. See, you just paused it right there. You tried it. And those who are back have now saved hours and hours of time because of the super useful tools to try new ad copy, to pause keywords, to change bids on the fly very quickly with flashy, different looking types of interface that doesn't, just bore your eyes out after looking at it for hours. And maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm the only one that's tired of just seeing the same. Sometimes I wish there were puppies in Google Ads, just to, something a little happier, but it's not. Maybe Optio will add puppies. Hey, if you ask, hey, can I get 6 week extended trial, and can you add puppies? Maybe they'll do it. Let them know where you heard that suggestion from. So check them out, opteo.com/PSP.
Thanks, Chris. And if you have an enterprise campaign out there, a B2B campaign, it's not just all fun and games. You have a real ROI that you need to hit, and Directive Consulting helps you hit the ROI you expect with a level of care you don't. They have dedicated teams, daily communication, rapid execution, and predictable ROI. Their approach to search engine marketing, all factors of it, SEO, SEM, social content, everything, their approach is engineered for the way enterprises work. So if you have an enterprise campaign, if you have a need for leads and quality leads and a need to scale that, and you want to hit an ROI, contact Directive Consulting. Go to directiveconsulting.com today and get your free custom proposal and see what Directive Consulting can do for you.
All right. As promised, here it is. Definitely something I see as an issue when you change, and we're going to do a brief vocabulary lesson here. When you change your audience targeting, there is a setting at the audience level, and nowadays there is audiences at every campaign except for shopping. That's the only one that doesn't have audiences. But search, you can have audiences. Display, you can have audiences. And video, you can have audiences. And audiences, if you have your audience set as targeting, if it says method, targeting method, and if it says targeting is your targeting method, that's super confusing. I wish they would change some of the language on that, but targeting means that it's only showing to those people within that audience. If you have a problem showing impressions, you're not spending your budget, you may be targeting only people that are in that audience and are searching those keywords. So you've taken an audience of potentially hundreds of thousands of people, and you've now narrowed it down to only the people that search for the keyword and are within a certain targeted audience. So what you want is to change it to observation, and that will give you data without restricting your keyword targets.
I got my eyes on you, Chris, because we're about to move this thing over to Patreon, and I'm coming for you so hot right now.
I've already previewed the questions, and I have to say, yeah, it's going to be interesting topics. I love it. I'm glad you have something.
I'm glad before we go in there, you're saying you love it, because I'm coming after you so hard, both in terms of content you edited out, that great genius stuff I came up with that I want to know why. I just want to know why. I want to know why you did it to me.
No.
Was it me?
No.
I just need to know why. I just need to know why. And I just want to get better. So I need you to tell me why. Okay. So I want to know why there was content you canceled. I am spending your money on platforms that you may not want me to be spending your money on to advertise this show right now. And I'm going to explain to you why I made those decisions and why it's working. I went behind your back, and now I'm going to turn you around and show you what I've been doing. So
here's your new kitchen.
Beyond that, I have a funny story with a client this week, and Google has changed their look of their organic search results on desktop. We're going to talk about that.
Yep.
And that's all we're going to talk about. So we'll see you on Patreon. And Chris, you better show up and not be scared, because we're going to take a 1 second break here, or like a 5-minute break. And you better come back here, because I don't want you to no show. I don't want you to ghost me.
Okay. I'll be here.
Do I have your word?
You guys be there too.
Do I have your word?
Yeah, I'll be there. And you guys can be there too. Join us, paidsearchpodcast.com. You can join our Patreon. Look for the link there, and you can join in and listen to those. Thanks, guys, for listening. We'll be back next week.